Cells and Tissues, Chapter 3, Part 3. Some objectives. It is important to know the four major tissue types, their chief subcategories, and know their general structure and functions. And know where they are found in a more broad general way. As we go through the course, we'll be looking not only at the gross anatomy of structures, but also at their microscopic anatomy, and these basic tissue types and their major subcategories will come up again and again throughout the course. Okay, so tissues. Again, tissues are groups of cells with similar structure and function. We mentioned this before. There are four primary types. 1, epithelial tissue or epithelium. 2 is connective tissue. 3 is muscle tissue. And 4 is nervous tissue. So for this section, we will focus on one of the four primary tissue types, epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue, or epithelium, covers structures and lines structures, so it is found on many body surfaces. Also, our glandular tissue is made up of epithelium, so think covers and lines the body and glands when you're thinking about epithelium. Some of epithelial tissue's functions include protection. Think of our skin. It keeps out microorganisms, prevents loss of fluids and minerals from our body. Protection, the ciliated epithelium inside our trachea, we've talked about this already, helps move unwanted material out of our respiratory tract and protects our lungs. Absorption, epithelium, for example, that lines our digestive tract, absorbs nutrients. Can have a filtration function. Epithelium that is in our kidneys is involved in filtering. Can have a secretion function. Here we are with glands again. Glands, which are made of epithelial tissue, secrete enzymes. They can secrete sweat, oils, mucus, milk, a variety of substances. So let's look at some of epithelium's characteristics. Epithelial cells that cover and line structures are attached closely together to form sheets of cells. The apical surface is the very outer surface of the body's exterior, or is a surface that contacts the lumen or cavity of an internal organ. For example, the lumen of the intestine is the space inside the tube-like intestine where digesting food is contained. The apical surface of the epithelial cells that line the intestine is the surface in contact with the lumen and its food contents. The basal surface of the epithelium is the lower or deeper surface and contacts the basement membrane. The basement membrane is made from a type of collagen, the structural protein that we've talked about, and anchors the epithelium to the connective tissue beneath it. The basement membrane is formed by both the epithelium and the underlying connective tissue. Epithelium is avascular, which means it does not have a blood supply. So how does it live? Well, it depends on getting its oxygen and nutrients by diffusion from capillaries in the underlying connective tissue. An epithelial tissue can often heal well if it is well nourished. When we classify epithelium, first see how many layers it has. Okay, so if I ask you what type of epithelium this is or to classify it, first thing is count the layers. If it has one layer, we call it simple. If it has more than one layer, we call it stratified. A stratum is a layer, and geologists often look at the different strata in the earth. They're looking at the different layers in the earth. So strata is layer. So simple or stratified are often the first word used to describe the epithelium. The second word in our description relates to the shape of the cells. Squamous means scaly or plate-like, and they have a flat shape. Cuboidal are shaped like cubes, kind of square-looking. And columnar are column-like or rectangular shaped cells. So let's look at some types of simple epithelium. Remember, if it's simple, it means it has only one layer of cells. Simple squamous epithelium. This is a single layer of flat cells. This can be found lining our body cavities, our blood vessels, in our lungs. This is a very thin epithelium. One layer of these flattened cells. Simple cuboidal is a single layer of cube-shaped cells, often found in glands and their ducts, for example, would be a place we find cuboidal epithelium. Simple columnar is a single layer of column-shaped or tall rectangular cells. Simple columnar epithelial lines our digestive tract. Here's a bit of a different name. Pseudostratified columnar. Pseudo means false. Pseudostratified columnar epithelium is epithelium that the columnar cells are so different in heights and their nuclei are at different heights that it appears that there are layers of cells, but really every cell makes contact with the basement membrane. So even though it appears stratified, it is really simple. It is really a single layer. In this slide, we see pseudostratified columnar epithelium that have cilia. The cells are ciliated. That lines our trachea or our windpipe. Okay, that was simple epithelium. Now let's look at the stratified epithelium. Again, stratified epithelia have more than one layer. Stratified squamous epithelial have layers of flat cells, especially flat as they get to the surface. This thicker epithelium is found where there's lots of friction, like on our skin or in our mouth and esophagus, where we chew and swallow all kinds of food. So you want a thicker layer there to handle the scraping action and the friction that goes on that it is exposed to. There is tissues that are stratified cuboidal, as well as stratified columnar. It's also found in our bodies, but is much less common. Just want to mention those. The last stratified epithelium we'll mention also has a different name, transitional epithelium. Transitional epithelium is stratified in that it has multiple layers, but the shape of the cells change. It is found lining our urinary system, for example, our bladder. When the bladder is empty, the surface cells are rounded in shape, but when the bladder fills and stretches, the bladder wall thins and the surface cells become flattened. So the cell's shape undergoes a transition. It is considered a special kind of stratified squamous epithelium because as again it stretches, the surface cells become flattened. Okay, and finally, glandular epithelium. A gland is one or more cells responsible for secreting a particular product. Okay, and there's two major types of glands. Endocrine glands. Endocrine glands have no duct. They secrete hormones, which are chemical messengers, into the bloodstream. And we'll be looking at the endocrine system during this course. The second type of gland is an exocrine gland. These glands secrete their substance to the surface by way of a duct. So for example, sweat glands secrete sweat to the skin surface. Salivary glands secrete saliva into our mouth. Our pancreas secretes digestive enzymes into our intestine. And this concludes Cells and Tissues, Chapter 3, Part 3.